What's going on, guys? Danny from Slow Restoration. We have the 2024 Denali HD Ultimate in the shop, getting ready to put it up in the air and do the first oil change. And if you're anything like me, the question you want to know is what oil filter goes on this truck. We are using a AC Delco, and it is a PF63 filter. So I actually watched another YouTube video about a first oil change in a 2024 Duramax, and they stated the wrong oil filter at the beginning. They did correct themselves later on, but it almost made me buy the wrong one. I'm glad I actually crawled under the truck and looked. But as you'll see, we get this up in the air. This is what came factory on at least my truck, the 2024 6.6 liter Duramax L5P Series 2. I know they revised a little bit, and unfortunately, when we picked this up from the dealership, the dealer actually told me this was not the right filter for my truck, even though that's what came on at factory. So at least for the first oil change, that's what we're going to do. And it's not really due for its first oil change yet. We'll look inside here real quick. See, it's got 3,265 miles. That's where we're going to do our first oil change. I really wanted to catch it a little bit earlier, but I did a little trip and it just went a little bit higher than I wanted, but that's still well before, I think the factory recommended is 5,000 miles roughly for the first oil change. But anyway, real quick here, I'll show you. If you push this start button, don't put your foot on the brake, push the start button and just hold it in. Goes into accessory mode. You have full control over everything in here, and it actually activates your fuel pump, your factory lift pump. So if you were to do a fuel filter change, that's how you're going to prime the fuel filter. We'll get to that when we actually do our first fuel filter change. We're not going to do it on this one. It's just going to be an oil filter change. But let's scroll through here and see. So again, 3,265 miles. Our average mile per gallon was 14.5. Quite a bit of that was actually towing. We're going to scroll through, get to, so my best fuel economy was 21.4, and obviously that was unloaded and on the highway for probably extended period of time, and average is 14.6. Truck is saying we have 56% oil life, but again, I'm going to change it now. Get that first one out of the way. You always have break-in stuff in your oil. We'll check everything out as we go, but so far zero issues with this. I just want to get that first oil change out of the way. So the truck is warmed up, so we're going to go ahead and put it up in the air and we'll get the oil draining out of this thing. Have it up in the air here. Drain pan under it. We're going to go ahead and drain the oil out of the pan. It's a 15 millimeter. We'll get that draining, and right there's the oil filter. So right there, before I even take it off, PF63. Here we have it drained. It is kind of dark. It's been drained for a little bit now, but make sure you have plenty of room because I believe there is 10 to 11 quarts in these with the filter. So make sure your oil drain isn't almost full. Make sure you got plenty of room in it. So we're going to let this drain for a while. We did let the truck warm up. Oil pan was nice and warm. We'll let that drain. Filter's off, and we're just going to let that drain for as long as it needs to. Get all of that old oil out. We have plenty of time. We're not in a rush. So we're just going to let it sit here on the lift and drain for a while. Then we'll get everything kind of put back together. I did learn some things since the last time I did a walk under of this truck, so I'll go over a couple of those things. And I grab my light here. If we come back here, one of the questions I had asked when I did my original one is that do the differentials have a drain on them? And sadly, no. They do have the boss there, but it was not drilled and tapped. So when you do your first service, obviously with that cover off, you could drill and tap that and put a plug. Like I said, they do add a boss there, so that is doable. There's the fill to plug. But they did not add a drain, at least in the back. Let's go up to the front and see if they added one up front. So there is this shield here, skid plate, but I do not see one there either. These do have a differential cover on the front, and again, there's the fill 2 line or plug, but you can easily pop that diff cover off, drain it, and do your service. It appears to be a reusable steel shim gasket also, so it looks pretty easy to do, but they did not add, unfortunately, a drain plug on the front or back. On the transfer case, yes, they did. I mean, it's kind of normal. You definitely want that. There's the drain plug on the transfer case. On the transmission pan, there is also a drain plug. They put it up pretty high, so you're definitely not getting all the fluid out, but if you're doing this, you're probably going to do the filter inside, and that will save you a lot of mess just draining it from there also. After letting everything drain for quite a while, we got everything cleaned back up. We got the drain plug back in, our new filter here, and a little bit of oil on the gasket. With that gasket oiled, we installed the new oil filter there, and again, we're just going with the AC Delco. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. We're just gonna do our first oil change, get a couple more miles on it, and then we'll do it again. But a couple things I have learned about this since the last up or underneath video is I believe that's part of it right there, but there's actually a complete separate cooling system for it's a low pressure cooling system, and part of that is, I believe, the fuel cooler is run off of that. So anyway, it's got a completely separate low side cooling system. It's a low pressure, it has antifreeze in it, and it flows through, and it is separate from the engine cooling system. Maybe that's, you know, all the L5Ps. Again, this is my first L5P, even though it's a Series 2. Not real sure if that's specific to 2024, probably not, but either way, I learned that about it. Don't forget, while you're doing your oil change, while you're under here, go ahead and grease all of these grease fittings that GM fortunately does still put on. So outer tie rods, inner tie rods, upper and lower ball joints, and a couple other spots here. If we look up here, your idler arm, pitman arm, all that good stuff. Almost forgot to show you filling the oil back up. I didn't forget to do it, almost forgot to show you. So these trucks there's the oil fill right there. As you can see, it calls for 1540, and there's a specific oil they want to use. This is actually what we're going to use. This is what GM actually recommends. So you can actually buy this right from your dealership, but the Mobile Delvac 1300 Super API CK4, and there's another number on there, I forget what it is, but as long as it has that, you are good for this oil. Now, everyone is saying that they take 10 quarts, which is 2.5 gallons. I actually did put 10 quarts in, so we're going to check it. I did let this drain a little bit longer than normal. You normally would. We went away, so it drained for hours. So I have a feeling it drained more than ordinary. So right now it's got 10 quarts in it. We'll reach down in there, pull the dipstick, and we'll check it here live. So it's just on the bottom of the dipstick. It's into the cross hatches, but I'm going to add a little bit more, probably another quart or so. So I think it's going to take about 11 if you let it drain for an extended period of time, but we'll double check it here. Now these trucks are tall, and while I'm not super tall, I'm also not short, and I can reach all this stuff. We're off the lift. I can reach all this stuff and not really be leaning over the fender too hard. As you can see, I can grab the oil fill, I can grab the dipstick tube, and it's not too much of a problem. But if you're a little bit shorter, you're probably going to want a step stool, just because these trucks are so big now. We put about another quart in, and we're right where we need to be. So if you have extended drain times, it's probably going to take 11 quarts. By the way, I did start this up. The oil filter is full. And while we're under the hood here, this is the engine coolant. There's that low pressure coolant system reservoir for that. So kind of neat, something a little different, at least for me. And in this little box, the GM part, another accessory for the 2024 Denali Ultimate. Totally unnecessary, 100% worth it.